Yeah, I want some more pins if you want. No, we're not. Distraction. It says that you're currently live on my end.
We're into the quiet period, folks.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so hi everybody. We're still going to wait for some more people to arrive, okay, because it's not a quorum quite yet, and we'd like some more people here. So let's just sit and wait for a little while, okay? Okay, so you're getting a welcome out there, Miguel.
I can't see any of the reads. And even if they're on the screen, I'm supposed to wear glasses, so I still can't see them.
Oh yeah, so am I supposed to wear glasses also. Okay, but I took them off. Okay, I got my eyes fixed, but a little while ago.
Awesome.
And since then, I'm playing the glasses game. I never had to play that, before. I always had one pair of glasses. It fit everything. Okay, and then they fixed my eyes, and now I need 6 pairs of readers. Okay.
To fix your eyes, and they also gave some commission to the glass making factory, huh?
Well, they certainly did. Only I think the the glass making factory is probably in Taiwan.
Well, hey, after Japan, they consider pretty good technology, So, and Japan's top notch.
Yeah, I know.
Taiwan's just a little bit more affordable.
Yes, I know. When I had a computer company, I used to buy my computers from the Taiwan factory.
Smart man. Smart man.
Okay,
hey,
so
something you pay for the label.
Okay, so let's start up now, Miguel.
Okay.
This is Joe Firestone for Real Progressives. It's 9:04 p.m. on Thursday night, and my guest for tonight is Miguel Zuniga, who is from the California 43rd, is running for Congress in the primary as a Green Party candidate. And Miguel is a 22-year employee for Costco Company, which is one of the more progressive companies in the country. It's actually been trying to pay people a living wage right from the start. I'm not sure that it's a living wage in the Los Angeles area, but I think in many other areas of the country it probably is. So anyway, he got involved in the Bernie campaign and had a fire lit under him in the Bernie campaign, had a wonderful time. And now he's back to help to give us a People's Congress. Okay, so I'm going to now turn over the broadcast, not completely turn over it, as you know, because I cannot keep my mouth shut. But I'm going to give him a chance to set the context of the race. And after he's done, we'll begin to talk about the wonderful platform that he has for us. Okay, so Miguel, if you'd like to start off with the context, we'd appreciate that.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show, Joseph. Real Progressives. Obviously, we're a fan over here, and we appreciate everything you guys are doing for the progressive and revolutionary community. We need more outlets like these that bring truth to power. Now, the context of my race. First of all, my name is Miguel Angel Zuniga. I'm a lifetime member of my district right here in Los Angeles, 43. And like you said, I became a delegate for Bernie Sanders. I was a lifetime Democrat. Nothing really I wore on my sleeve, lesser of two evils type of deal. And then when I actually participated, I actually saw someone to get excited about, which coincidentally wasn't a lifetime Democrat. He was an independent his whole career. Probably the whole reason why people love him. And I got involved because he didn't wake me up. I was already speaking everything he said. I just agreed with it, and it was finding someone on the inside that agreed. So that's what made me get involved. And when I got involved, it was almost just confirming all the horrendous things that I can only imagine of the party. The way we were being treated, the way they were trying to silence us, everything was just enough to say that it was a hypocrisy of a democracy. So I stepped away, because my country deserves better. And I went to the Green Party not because I want to be all into any party or I feel like, we have to depend on parties. I went to the Green Party because it's the one that best matches our moral value, and it doesn't accept corporate funding, which is the biggest problem in politics. We're not up against politicians, we're up against corporations who bought these politicians out. So the context of my race considers in Los Angeles right now, one of the biggest things that are affecting us is the homeless situation. At first it was one of my main things that I was really, really focusing on was election integrity, because I was a victim of election fraud. They switched my registration both times I went to go vote. My vote for Joe Stein was never counted, but it's really starting to shift. That's still to my heart, one of the most important things because, I know plenty of veterans. My uncle fought in Nam, and I'm lucky to still have them today. And we're disrespecting them with the votes. But walking around in my neighborhood these days, it's just been horrendous. I just put out a small little campaign video. It's about 2 minutes long, but every single picture of there that you saw of homeless and all that stuff was taken by me personally. Because this is my district, this is what's going on, and this is what's being ignored. And I'm talking about homeless prevention. I'm talking about pre-finance home loans. Putting people with bad credit into the housing market under foreclosed homes, putting their debt in their home, and giving an opportunity to go from renters to owners. Because right now we're going from renters to homeless fast. There's a 70% increase in the homeless population in my district right now. Another thing is single payer health care. We really need that. We're surrounded by refineries, first of all, so the air quality here is terrible. Pollution from all the traffic. We're one of the worst districts when it comes to traffic all across the country. And this is, I think we have the second most congested street in the country in our district, or runs through our district, just to show how much traffic we have out here too. But they're stuck on the bullet train. We can't even feed people across the street. And I'm coming into this as a person, like you said, I'm a 22-year employee for Costco. I'm coming into this as a person that is not being represented like the rest of my district. So the one thing we don't have in Congress is we have plenty of politicians, but we don't have people. We need people in Congress. We need people with a heart that actually cares and wants to come and lead with love and compassion. And that's where I'm coming from in this. I'm not a politician. I don't want to be one. I want to belong to the people. I want to stay in this people-funded campaign. The minute I take $1 from the corporations, that's when I no longer belong to you, and you have to fight me as hard as I'm fighting them right now. So as long as I stay, I'm not greedy. I'm not selfish. I just want to provide for my family as much as everybody else in my district. And I want to make it easier for us to do. And who I'm up against? I'm up against Maxine Waters as the incumbent. She's been in there for 29 years. She's passed 4 bills. One of them was to change the name of a post office. I can't remember the last time she actually lived in the district. Well, I'm not swearing. These are stuff that people can actually look up and realize, like, oh, wow, I had no idea, because I had no idea. And then when I found out, I was like, are you kidding me? And, recently she was on video talking about she might even have to campaign this time around. Well, that's good. At least someone's making her nervous. I don't know if it's me or Omar or any of the other incumbents, but, she feels a little threatened in this race. And she should be. She should be, because I'm not talking about Trump and I'm not talking about Russia, because first of all, for the last 29 years, Trump and Russia wasn't affecting California. The Democrats own the power here in California, and they were voting for gas bills, gas tax bills, and instead of taxing the profits of these wealthy, businesses, the refineries, they're taxing the people, and we shouldn't even be taxing anyway. It's an excuse to keep us poor.
I see, and I agree. I agree.
Sorry, I didn't want to take too much of it.
Entirely. Oh no, that's all right. I actually wanted you to spend even more time on your platform,
nice.
Talking about the details. Okay, for example, I know that what you want to do is to get money out of politics. As you stated, this is a very, very important thing for you. So the question is, what are you going to do when you get to Congress in order to get money out of politics?
We have to repeal Citizens United right off the bat. I mean, that's the first door I'm going to be knocking on, because, again, our vote is our voice. And right now, they haven't just muffled it, they duct taped it, they've thrown us into a coffin and buried us 6 feet in the ground. Literally, they're in court saying under oath that they're a private organization that doesn't have to count our votes. They can pick whoever the hell they want to be their party candidate. And look, they picked the candidate that would lose to Trump. So, even in football, the Green Bay Packers are owned by the actual city, and they were made fun of because they decided to let go of Favre and go with Rodgers, and they won the Super Bowl the next year. It usually means that the people, as a combined effort, knows what's better for their that was just an analogy, obviously, but it always shows that the people always knows what's better for their surrounding environment, and we gotta let more people be able to have a say so. And when we're not counting votes and when we're changing people's registrations against their will to mail-in only, to give them provisional ballots even when you go in there and they don't even give you a crossover ballot, because I know the rules. Standing in there for 20 minutes and I argued with the volunteer that said that they don't even pay her to do it, which was a lie, because I volunteered to be at the ballot booth and they paid me. It's nonprofit, but they paid. So that was a lie. Oh, they don't pay me. Well, if they don't pay you enough to do this, you have an option not to do it. Unless someone that actually cares about a democracy, do it. But obviously, how many Hillary supporters do you know have issues voting? I don't know any.
Well, I don't know. I haven't done a survey of whether Hillary voters have some issues but I suspect there are some. Okay, in other words, for example, if you have a district where the people are trying to disenfranchise the seniors in the district. Okay, I know quite a number of seniors who were knee-jerk for Hillary.
Yeah.
And a lot of others, who were knee-jerk for Trump. Okay?
Right.
So when they try to disenfranchise the seniors, which they do sometimes, then that would actually disenfranchise, some Hillary supporters. The point being that the people they choose to disenfranchise, they make that choice based on statistics that they have from the polls, which tell them, 65%, of a particular group, are likely to vote for the Democrats, and 35%, of that group, are likely to vote for the Republicans. So disenfranchise the whole group. We're still going to gain by that, and that's the game they play. They slice and dice, the electorate into segments, and they gerrymander the districts based on what the statistics are telling them. And so that's a key factor in it. But with respect to the parties, would you support some legislation in the Congress which basically stated that no, the parties are not entirely private corporations. They're corporations clothed with the public interest, and therefore, when they say to people that they're running a primary contest, there is a presumption that the primary contest is going to be fair, and that moreover, the primary contest is going to determine who the nominee of the party is going to be. And so, therefore, if there is any rigging in the party internally to prevent this kind of thing, that will be a felony, and those people will go to jail. Are you willing to support a law that basically says that?
It's funny because I've actually spoken, what you said already. I've said that we need stricter penalties for anybody who messes with our election system. It's election fraud to me is treason, which is in some states is still punishable by hanging. So, there's people walking away. Like in San Diego, there was a case where they actually won, that they proved that there was election fraud. But all they did was like, okay, you guys are right, and they patted them in the back and sent everybody on their way. There was no more, instead of starting an investigation and seeing where it leads and who's involved, and, nobody got arrested. Everybody's still walking around free. We still got Hillary, in the woods and coming in and out of the woods or whatever, and, writing books, blaming everybody but herself, and making more money, even after she lost to her good friend.
Okay,
but we need the legislation to prevent that. We need stricter rules. Like you said, it has to be a felony. But not, one thing is to actually write those laws, but we need to actually enforce them.
Yes,
because
we do.
I feel like nobody. We either need to start a committee that's going to enforce, like almost like the police. The police is the government. If they want to have police following us around and profiling us and all this good stuff, then we should have the same on them. We should have a committee that's designed by the people that are keeping eyes and tracks and total transparency. We need total transparency on where the money is going, where our tax dollars are being spent, how much of it is going to the military.
Right, and what the police are doing when they're on duty. There needs to be total transparency in that as well.
Total transparency.
But by going away from that for a minute, one of the big issues in by getting money out of politics is that that money is used in campaigns to bribe our politicians. And CU says that it's completely legal to have that actually go on, and that since they think that that money, when it's given by corporations, is corporate speech, and the corporate speech is protected by the 14th Amendment. Therefore, the Supreme Court is saying that it's unconstitutional to pass any campaign finance laws that would restrict the free speech of the corporations. So then the question arises, what are we going to do about that? And you've already said that you would vote for a constitutional amendment to repeal CU.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes,
and I know that you would, but what I want to point out to you is that to get such a repeal on the books would probably take from 7 to 10 years or more, because it has to go through a ratification of 3/4 of the states. Okay, and not just a vote in the Congress. So the question is, what do we do within 7 to 10 years?
Well, the important thing is that once we throw the bill out there and we can start voting on it to repeal it, then we got to see who's on board. If we see all these Democrats and all these Republicans all cozying up together and voting against it, then we know exactly who's the first ones that need to get replaced. We need to totally recall all these people that are not supporting the people's will. The people are begging and crying for the Democratic Party not to take the money, and the first thing they did when they voted for the money or not was vote to keep the money. So it's like you shoot yourself on one foot and you're prepared to shoot the other one. And it doesn't work that way. We need to invest into to candidates and, forget the party. Let the people need to stop letting party pride blind them from actual progress and look for the candidates who are taking the money from the people only. One of the things that pisses me off the most about Citizens United is that in that law, it basically states that the corporations have the same right as a person to invest in political campaigns. But the problem is that as a person, you can only invest $2,700 into a political campaign. But they want to give a corporation, which is only maybe a body of 1 to 12 people, maybe at most times, the power to donate as much money as they want, but they don't have the clause where, it should be limited at $2,700. If they're going to be given the same right as a person, they should be given the same right as a person. But they got given the same right as a person with superpowers. So now there's some kind of superhuman being that gets all this financial backing to go to whatever, it's only the two parties that protect this. That's how you know they're working together.
True, but you still got a problem, because if you try to pass a law to restrict that, a new campaign finance law to restrict that, then the Supreme Court is going to strike it down. So basically, what can you do when you want to stop that kind of thing within the 7 to 10 years that it's going to take to pass an amendment? Okay, so I'm going to tell you now one thing that you can do. Okay, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution has a phrase which is known as the exceptions clause to the Constitution, or I should say to the judicial power in the Constitution. And that gives Congress the right to check the judiciary by restricting the jurisdiction of the appeals courts of the United States, including the Supreme Court, which is just an appeals court. So if you pass some legislation and you put this phrase in from Article 3, Section 2, and you say this is going to apply to this particular bill, okay, or act, then the Supreme Court won't have any jurisdiction over it. It's out of the game. It won't have any say. That's a very simple thing that you can do, and you can check it tonight. Read your Constitution, Article 3, Section 2, and you will see, okay, that it is there. And that is what can give us the time to work to pass an amendment. We need the amendment still, okay, because, as soon as the Republicans come back into office, they're going to get rid of the prohibition in Article 3, Section 2, so they get the court back on their side. So to lock this in, you still need to have the amendment passed, but it's still necessary for progressives to control the Congress for some long period of time to basically stop the Supreme Court, okay, from doing that. Now, you will hear arguments against this from people who will say, well, really, the unwritten Constitution, our traditions, our customs have established that we should not be interfering with the Supreme Court in this way. However, there's only one Constitution here in the United States in actual fact, and that is the written Constitution. There ain't any unwritten Constitution from the standpoint of the law. Okay, that's a nice fiction we like to talk about, like saying, well, we're not going to get rid of the filibuster because it's part of the unwritten Constitution. No, there ain't any unwritten Constitution. Okay, and the framers put in this exceptions clause specifically for the purpose of controlling a Supreme Court that had gone too far. It's part of the checks and balances system. Okay, so that's important, I think. Okay, so let's move to another issue, the Medicare for All issue. Which bill do you support that is there right now to pass the Medicare for All Act? In other words, which bill would you support?
Well, right now we have the HR 676. And it's been a little quiet lately. With at least out here in California, because the push for SB 562 on the state assembly. But yeah, that's one of them. I know Bernie threw up another one. I forget the actual, but that's a Senate one, right? That one has to go
Yes.
through the Senate. But yeah, we gotta support any of those, and we can always come up with another one. The more, my, if you look at my campaign and my proposal, some people say like, "Oh, you're offering Disneyland, right?" And my thing is like, you know what? You gotta throw as many things as you can at that dartboard until you get a bullseye. Because if I come in there with one or two proposals and they both get shut down, now we're left with absolutely nothing. But if we could get one or two proposals passed out of the 400 I throw at now we got something, and we always got to shoot for more because they're gonna talk us down. So if we get exaggerated when we're demanding, then it's gonna the talk down is gonna be a little higher than we would have got. So
Okay,
that's
so I agree with that to some degree. However, what I'd like to do is call your attention to differences that exist between HR 676 and the Bernie bill in the Senate. The main difference for me, well, is that the Bernie bill transitions in over 4 years' time. Okay. HR 676 is fully implemented within a single year. Now, why is implementing it within a single year better? Well, the reason why it's better is because there are thousands of fatalities that are associated with not having insurance. And right now, even after the Affordable Care Act was passed, there are roughly, most probably between 35,000 and 37,000 fatalities per year. Okay, now just to go over a little bit of the history of this, in 2005, there was a study done, which wasn't actually completed and out there published until 2009. The study was done by Harvard people at that time. Okay, they moved on to NYU after that. Okay, but they were Harvard people at the beginning. They estimated that fatalities in 2005 were 45,000. Okay, and the press grabbed hold of the 45,000 as a headline figure. Okay. The population of the United States was 299 million, okay, in 2005. And the population of the United States grew thereafter each year. But the 45,000 headline figure basically never changed. Everybody was always saying the fatalities of 45,000, right up through 2009, through the collapse, okay, of the economy. All those people lost their jobs, and with it, okay, their health insurance, okay, but they were still quoting the same fatalities rate. Well, in reality, the fatalities were changing each year. After 2005, they most likely went up to as high as 53,000 or 54,000. Then with the Affordable Care Act, they started to go down again, okay, and they probably went down as far as maybe 33,000 or 34,000, and now maybe they're up to 36 or 37,000 again, because a lot of people have been giving up their insurance because they can't afford it. Okay, so I spent some time, okay, in estimating what the fatalities were during the Democratic administration, Obama's administration with the Affordable Care Act between 2009 and 2016. And my estimates set, which I think are fairly accurate, but I'll send you the article on them, say that the death toll was 356,000. 100 times the 9/11 death toll. That death toll would have been entirely avoidable, at least from 2010 to 2016, if they had passed John Conyers' bill in 2009. That is an earlier version of the bill that's there now in the House. Okay, Conyers introduced versions of that bill from about 2004 all the way up to last year. Okay, but it never got passed, and people died, and everybody turned their heads, and they wouldn't talk about the fatalities issue, and that's what gets me mad. I think they think in Washington it's impolite to talk about the fatalities issue, because then you have to say the insurance companies are actually murderers by spreadsheet. But what I'm telling you is that it's important not to go down the same path they went down in the earlier years, okay, when the Democrats took over in 2009, and to treat this in a different way, to consider the fatalities issue as the major issue, to compare the Sanders bill with the Conyers bill, actually now Keith Ellison's bill, on the basis of differences in fatalities, and recognize that the trade-off between jobs in the insurance industry and fatalities is an unhealthy trade-off. They traded in 2009 450,000 jobs, which might have been lost in the industry, well, would have been lost in the industry, but those jobs would have come back, okay, in other industries. But let's take the 450,000 figure. They traded 450,000 jobs for 356,000 lives. That is an unconscionable, immoral, and unholy trade-off. And what I'm saying is that it's up to people like you who are running for Congress to make that trade-off clear in the Congress every single day, and to say, we want a bill which is going to give everybody insurance, cover everybody within a year. No ifs, ands, or buts, within a reasonable implementation period, no longer than 12 months. And you've got every reason to say we could do it, because they did it with Medicare in 1966 on those old mainframe computers. They didn't have the computer power we have today. They had only manual stuff, okay, and those large computers. And they did it, okay, within a year's time for seniors. We can do it for everybody with our computer resources in far less time than that if we want to do it.
They did it for the banks with the bailout.
They did it, well, they did something else for the banks, of course, but that was fairly easy. All they had to do was to drop a bunch of money created by the federal government onto them, okay, which they did, of course. They gave, the Federal Reserve gave the banks credit facilities worth more than $30 trillion. This is according to a study that was done by the Levy Institute, and I think back in 2012. And those credit facilities did not end at that time. They went right on. The banks, were rolling them over. They're probably still rolling them over even at present. So what the total credit was that was given out to the banks in the wake of the recession, I mean, God knows what it is now. Then it was nearly $30 trillion. It might be up to 45 trillion by now, okay, as far as I know. Can't say. Okay, there's no study on that. But, I mean, it's just outrageous. And meanwhile, they extended close to no money to homeowners, millions of whom went broke. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you have to stop
That, that,
when you
that,
get in.
that's the other thing that most people don't mention too, because there was a time where the majority of homeless were drug addicts that the families couldn't put up with and everything, and ended up on the streets. But we got to understand that during that bailout, a lot of those foreclosed homes put a lot of people on the street that were too proud to go get help, and they ended
Yes,
up homeless.
yes,
And now we have an NFL stadium being built that's going to host two teams right here in LA now, and that area is already being gentrified, and there's already eminent domain going on, and the people that own the properties are going to be well off. The problem is the majority of the people that live in those properties don't own them.
yeah, they're
So
renting
now
them.
we're gonna add to a 70%, over 70% homeless increase that we've had already. We're gonna add in the next couple of years with the NFL coming into our district. And the profit the NFL is gonna make, most of that is not gonna be spent. What if they were to give out some kind of profit sharing to the district for allowing them to even have the stadium there? Be the first team to do the right thing and say, hey, you know what? Instead of kicking you guys out into the streets, we're gonna give you a little income from the profit we bring to the stadium, and we'll give you discounts on your season passes. Damn it! But it's something. But no, these people are so selfish and greedy, and they're playing sports for billions of dollars, and they're gonna have a homeless population increase because of it.
Yes,
Uh, I mean,
absolutely.
I played high school ball. I was part of a CIF championship team and everything, and I love football. And I'm now I don't miss it at all. Like now my new calling is like I see what's going on, and I see I would love to play football just so I can spend half of my fortune helping people. I mean now I'm forced to a situation. I've been cornered in my district to run for Congress just so we can get proper representation. I
Yes,
mean, I can't count. We can't count on
yes.
these suits anymore. Believe me, if I sound more convincing in a suit, I can run right to my house right now and go put one on. It's that easy. So if you're fooled by a suit, believe me, give me a minute or two. I can put my suit on it, and if it sounds more convincing and believable, I got you.
Okay, so you are for a job guarantee program,
Yes,
a federal job guarantee program. So talk
yes.
to me about that. How do you see the job guarantee program as operating?
Well, just like we're talking about right now, we put up a congressional bill and we ask for the funds and we get those funds approved. It's a couple of clicks away because it's not even, they don't even have to print dollars anymore. I mean, the whole cryptocurrency thing that's going crazy right now, it's not a new idea. We swipe credit cards, we write checks, that's all paying stuff without cash. So where do you think the youth got the idea for cryptocurrency? So, we get that money and I have to off-road in my Toyota Camry 3 blocks to go to my friend's house. And literally, I feel like I'm in a Jeep Wrangler going through the mountains because there's so many potholes. And I'm literally, you know what? Remind me of this. I'm gonna do a live stream of me driving through to my friend's house, and just to show you that I'm not even exaggerating. And this is just in my neighborhood. All over the district, you see it. You see curbs coming in with tree roots coming out of them, and these are jobs that even when we do get these jobs to fix these things, they're outsourced. Sometimes they get people from other states to come over here and do this stuff. Why? We have plenty of people that are dying for construction jobs all over our state here. Give it to them. So if we start programs where we start fixing our infrastructure, and then from there we move into making renewable energy, like the windmills, the turbines, anything like that. So once the infrastructure is completed, we start seeing a slowdown in production there. We start investing into renewable energy jobs, and we keep rotating it. It's a cycle because eventually the infrastructure is always going to be needed. It always needs to be kept up. So it's not like it's a one-time job and it's over and then everybody's unemployed again, right? There's always a pothole, always.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get something clear, though, or make something clear to people who are watching us. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives only Congress and the agents that are delegated by the Congress the authority to create the federal money. Okay, specifically, it was stated first as to coin money, but that got interpreted by the courts as the power to issue currency and the power to create reserves in accounts, okay, in bank accounts, where reserves are adding to the balance of an account, okay, a bank account. In other words, essentially marking up the account, okay, and also using the authority of Congress to mark down an account, okay, where taxes are involved, okay. So the spending authority is the authority of Congress and the agents that it actually delegates to create and to spend our federal money. Okay. Okay. So this is not a case of Congress begging for the money. This is a case of Congress actually appropriating the spending money. Now, right now, when Congress appropriates the spending money, that means it mandates the presidency, the executive branch of the government to spend on certain things. It gives orders for spending to the executive branch that the executive branch has to obey legally. Okay, and it does this for a period of time, like for a year or something like that. However, it doesn't give specific orders to the Federal Reserve to supply the reserves to the Treasury that it needs to execute the orders of Congress. So the executive has a duty, but under present circumstances, there are no specific orders given to the Federal Reserve to give the Treasury the wherewithal to spend. So basically, Treasury has to fill its account by following certain procedures and certain rules which are established in the banking industry or which were legislated by Congress at some time in the past. And there's this whole complex set, okay, of rules which allows the Fed to fill the accounts of the Treasury Department only under certain conditions, but not under other conditions. And this is what creates the possibility for what we see happening every few years now, specifically a debt ceiling crisis, where the Republicans generally manufacture the debt ceiling crisis so they can extract concessions from the Democrats, which allow the Democrats to agree to cut various discretionary spending programs, which are very valuable to people, and which also have been starting to give them some success in cutting the entitlement programs, okay, that people have. Now, I should say at this point, entitlements are not a bad word from where I sit. I never avoid that word because my entitlement is my right. I'm entitled to something. That's a right, okay, that I have. when people try to take away my rights, I get very, very angry. And so should everybody else. And they shouldn't shy away from that word. They should say, you're going after my entitlements, I'm going after your throat. That's what it should be about. No fooling around on this. In other words, don't touch my rights. That's what it should be about. So, okay. But to get back to debt ceiling crises, there would be no possibility of having any debt ceiling crises if the Congress did one simple thing. Now I'm going to put up a graphic for you to see, and I'm going to have the graphic fill the screen. And the graphic says something which is going to be true for you, because you, of course, offer all kinds of green programs, and for green jobs, and for the job guarantee, and for Medicare for all, and for free college, and for the elimination of student debt. All that is going to be expensive. And trust me, okay, the level of taxation we have now is not going to be enough to get the rules that are currently set up to fill the Treasury spending account, okay, with enough money to pay for all of those things. But, so somewhere along the line, you're going to get to the question, your programs look expensive. How are you going to pay for them? I think the best short answer to that question is, we're Congress. We'll just order the Fed to give Treasury the money.
You just explained it in perfect detail, all the way to the laws that protect it. Yeah, we put up the bill. We say we need the money. We all vote on it, and whoever votes against it, you know who you need to replace. These are we don't want free stuff. We want to work, and receive for our hard work. We just want our piece of the pie. So we put it up, and then the other thing is, when they did the military budget increase, right? 65% of Democrats voted in favor of that, but they call themselves the resistance. They call themselves the resistance, right? So the funny thing about that,
I call them the chicken resistance.
I call it the MIG resistance. Lawrence Steiner started that, but the MIG resistance is a good one. But yeah, the chicken resistance, they're scared to resist. The only thing they're resisting is progress, really, or actual candidates that care. But fast forwarding to that, so if they were to 65% for it, and we got another $100 billion added to the military increase, which at that point, I don't know why anybody's surprised that we're heading into wars now. You don't ask for a military increase if you don't plan on using it. Well, but that's another story. But the Democrats voted for it. So these Democrats that voted for that, they need to be vetted and replaced. They do,
but also it's important to note, okay, the military did not ask for that increase.
No, they didn't. Do you think our boys want to go out there and our girls want to go out there to foreign land and get killed? Who wants that?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the generals.
Oh yeah.
The generals did not ask for that increase. They don't need it. That was the idea of the chicken hawks in Congress.
Well, we know what it is. They get these $20 billion bombers. They make 12 of them, maybe, and it probably costs a couple $100,000 in actual material to make these things. But you got to pay the lawyer, you got to pay the architect, you got to pay the lobby, you got to pay the special interest, and it's a big profit machine. Recently, when those missiles went off, right, and we had this big old fireworks show in the sky because supposedly 80 of them got shot down by the Russians, right? Well, it didn't matter if they landed or not. You know what happened in the end? The Wall Street boys made a big profit, and now they got another investment to make because they got to replenish these missiles that blew up in the sky. So it doesn't matter if they even kill anymore. See, when they do kill, that's also part of their plan of population control. So what's even sicker about all of it is that they're profiting off population control, and they're not even making it at least a justifiable death. They're blowing people to pieces. At least let them, do something that they go out in their sleep. I'm not condoning it or recommending anything like that, but
absolutely
call themselves civilized. Just like the argument about, I'm a Christian and I'm totally against abortion, but yet you're okay with bombing a bunch of pregnant women across the country, and that's not aborting them. So you're just against the form of abortion. You're not really against abortions, really. You're seriously against a typical type of abortion. Because as long as
like you say, it's not a democracy; it's a hypocrisy.
It's a hypocrisy of democracy. Yep, I call them the hypocrites and the we dummigans. And they're in the House to represent themselves.
Yes. Okay, so there's something else, that I want to point out to you. Okay, and that is that when an appropriations bill is passed, there's not only a need for the money to pay for what is in the appropriations bill, there's also a need for money in order to pay back the parts of the debt subject to the limit, the national debt, so-called, which is coming due during the period of time of the appropriations bill. Okay, because the federal government has to pay back a fortune during that period of time. Like, for example, within 6 months' time, there might be $4 trillion worth of debt actually falling due. And within a year's time, there might be $6 trillion actually falling due, which is roughly, 1 2/3 times what the federal government actually spending, or 1.5 times what it's actually spending, in terms of, the appropriations themselves. But what's going on now is that the Treasury Department is going through the process of rolling over the debt. Okay, it issues new debt. It issues the same $6 trillion, or a little more, during the time of the appropriation. So, the order to have the Federal Reserve give the Treasury Department the money to spend the appropriation should also give the Treasury the money it needs to pay the debt back. If that also is done, and I meant to include that in the short sentence, that I gave you, then it would be the case that the national debt would cease to be an issue within 6 months' time, because the public would see that $4 trillion worth of the national debt was already repaid. It was tremendously easy. It's not difficult. It doesn't require any more taxes. It was just done by including the orders to the Federal Reserve in the legislation for the spending bill, for the appropriations bill. Okay, now I have some other graphics. I'm not going to put them all up. Okay, I have a graphic with a little more complicated language, than I just gave you. It's still but pretty much a one-sentence answer, which makes explicit that there would be enough money to pay off the debt. Also, but it's a little longer answer. It's not like a 30-second answer. It's maybe a minute answer. And then I have a third graphic, which gives you a 2-minute answer. And I will send you these graphics. But then there's a final graphic, which I'm going to put up for just a second, but right now, which gives you the language that needs to be put in an appropriations bill in order to make this happen. Now, this is a short clause. It's going to be difficult in a town hall meeting to put this up and have the public understand it. It might take 10 or 15 minutes, to get them to for you to explain exactly what it means. But in the process of writing legislation for a congressional bill, this is an incredibly simple clause. Has only 2 sentences. Doesn't expand any bills by very much at all. The 2 sentences can probably be fit into a single page of the bill. So if the tax provisions were taken out of H.R. 676 and this was added to 676 instead, probably that substitution would make the bill smaller. Okay, it's already a very small bill. It's only 35 pages. But if we took out the tax provisions, it would probably make it even smaller. So I show this to you, and I'll send this to you also after the show. Okay, but I wanted to point out to you, I not only had the short answers for town halls and forums and things like that, but I also had the long answer for the bill. Now, I'm not sure the language would be quite exactly that. When the lawyers in Congress get hold of it, it might be crafted in a slightly different way, but it would be about the same length, okay, and say about the same thing. So, okay, that's that.
Sounds good.
So I wanted to give you answers as to what to say when you get the question how you're going to pay for it, which you're going to get. And you're going to get it not only with the job guarantee bill, but you're going to get it with the Green Jobs program, with the infrastructure program that you want to pass,
Single payer.
with Medicare for All, with free public college, okay, and university, and you're going to get it with the elimination of student debt, which you're also for. On all these, okay, you're going to get that kind of a question. Okay. So, if you give them these answers to how you're going to pay for it, you're still going to get a question. And the question, okay, is going to be, if you do that and you just create all this money, what the people will probably say is, actually, they'll say, if you print all this money, they'll use the scare word. If you print all this money,
we'll run out of ink.
We're going to have inflation. We're going to have Paul Krugman will come at you as a supporter, okay, of Hillary Clinton, and he'll say, we're going to have hyperinflation. He's going to scream, Zimbabwe, Weimar. You know, he's going to do those kinds of things to you. He's going to say, Venezuela, Venezuela. Okay. So then you'll have to answer that. And the way that you need to answer that, okay, is just to say, look, I'm talking about what we do with spending bills. We're going to pass a spending bill, which is going to have the money necessary for all these things that we want to do as a progressive movement. And then we're going to have taxing bills, not to pay for this spending, because you can see from the language of this bill that we've already paid for the spending by ordering the Federal Reserve to give the Treasury the money. So we've already paid for it. But now we're going to tax for it. And why are we going to tax for it? And so then you're going to say, we're going to tax enough for it that we remove the possibility of any inflation actually starting due to government spending. Okay, and you can say to them, look, I'll be frank, there are other causes of inflation apart from government spending. For example, in the 1970s, the Saudis caused an inflation, coupled with the Federal Reserve, which added to the inflation. But that really didn't have anything to do with government spending at the time because the deficits were very low. They were only 2% or something like that. So it wasn't government spending causing it. So government spending is not the only cause, okay, of inflation. But what we can tell you here is that we'll prevent the inflation that might be caused by our creating money in the way that I've said, okay, that explained. Now, we're not going to tax enough to have a balanced budget. And the reason why we're not is because what a balanced budget means is that you tax so much that the private sector has zero savings. Now, I'm not talking about what individuals have now or some corporation has now. I'm saying the private sector taken as a whole would in that situation have zero savings. Okay, and furthermore, we would also have to have trade which was completely balanced. Okay. The reason why is when the private sector saves, it removes money out of the economy. And when we have a trade deficit, it takes money out of the economy because that money goes to the foreign sector. So it's out of the private sector of the economy. So when we have these leakages, it's necessary for the federal government to run a deficit to replace the net financial assets that have been lost due to the leakages. So that's what you got to explain to them.
There's one more thing I'd like to touch on that too is right now the way that most of the money is being spent it's being hoarded in the Cayman Islands and all this stuff. So that actually is going to lose the value of our dollar like it is because less people have money and the few families that really own the most of it are not investing in their own country. They're all in different, so it actually takes away that circulation. So when we do these jobs, these job programs and everything, and we start throwing this money into circulation, it's going to get spent. It's going to cause the economy to boom. Most people are not good at saving. So when they get this extra money, it's going to go back and circulate some more. So that, that's another positive effect to what we're you're explaining here on the other side of the fence, right?
Well, okay, some of foreign banks do have accounts that are denominated in our dollars. So yes, so those dollars are overseas in a sense. But there are many more dollars that were owned by foreign countries or foreign banks, which are sitting right here in the Federal Reserve Bank in the form of treasury securities, because the governments took those dollars and they invested them in treasury securities. So they're locked up at the Federal Reserve. And if they're not locked up in securities, they're locked up in reserves at the Federal Reserve right here, because foreign nations have accounts at the Federal Reserve. And those are the kinds of things that are in those accounts at the Federal Reserve Bank. And so if they're in accounts at the Federal Reserve Bank, they may technically be in the private economy, but generally they're not spent in the private economy. They're sitting there and interest is getting earned on them, on the treasury securities, okay, or interest on the reserves, which the Federal Reserve is now paying. Okay, it pays interest on reserve accounts, only a small amount of interest. Okay, it's fairly close to zero, okay, at this point. But it is interest that's getting paid to these people for them, or these organizations, for them to hold their money in the Federal Reserve accounts. So, as long as the money's there, it's not in the economy flowing to people who work. Okay, it's not in circulation. It's part of the leakage of demand that we've been talking about. But the stuff that's been locked up at the Federal Reserve and in foreign banks over many years now, which is a huge amount, okay, of U.S. dollars, is not in our economy. That's the demand leakage. That's what happened to it. Because it took place, we had all this unemployment over this period of years. We didn't have full employment budgets, and we don't have a full employment budget at this point. It's important to emphasize that because these people from the mainstream are going to come at you and talk about how large the deficits are, and you have to say, look, you've been paying for the deficits in the wrong way. What you've been doing is pretending that this bond revenue actually pays for the deficits, and you're selling bonds. But that's not the authority that pays for the deficits. The authority that pays for the deficits is the authority that we, Congress, gave to the Federal Reserve to create reserves in the Treasury account. That's what's paying for the deficits. Okay? So, when we deficit spend, what actually happens is that the Federal Reserve still creates the money, still creates the reserve for the Treasury account. Now, we're giving it a different way to do that. We're ordering the Federal Reserve to create that money for the spending account. Okay, so that's what is actually happening, okay, in this particular situation. And we're going to ensure that the deficits are large enough. The deficits we have now are too small. We know they're too small because we still have all this unemployment. And you have to say, I know your statistics say that the unemployment rate is only 4.1%, but you're not counting the people who left the labor force because they couldn't find a job. You're not counting the people who have only part-time employment when they want a full-time job at a living wage. You're not counting all these people. By our estimates, there are 24 million people still out there. 24 million people still out there who would take full-time jobs if they were available, which they will be under the federal job guarantee.
Yep. And that's a little bit more than half California right there. Just to put it in perspective.
Yes. So that's a very, very big number. And that would not have been the case if we had been running full employment budgets all along with the deficits consistent with a full employment budget. Even with the Trump tax cuts, even with those tax cuts, this year we're probably still going to run only $850 billion in terms of deficits. Okay, so you know how much we needed, okay, in deficits? We have GDP approaching 20 trillion. We know from previous performance that if the public has its savings desires filled, then private sector savings are going to be 6%, okay, of GDP, roughly speaking. It might be 7%, might be 5%, but somewhere in that particular range. We also know the trade deficit would rise to 6 or 7% because it rose that high during the Bush administration. So we know that, okay? So roughly speaking, we have leakage from the economy of 12% of GDP. Then you can ask them, do you know how much that is? That amounts to a deficit we should have been running of $2.4 trillion. This year, we're only running an $850 billion deficit, and that includes Trump's $1.5 trillion tax cut for the rich. That's way short of what we needed to spend. And not to spend on the military, and not to spend on more tax cut for the rich, and not to spend on nonsense, but to spend on the right things, like our roads, like our schools, like our Okay, I'm sorry to be, but what I'm trying to do is
Instead of a wall, some bridges,
wrap.
right? Instead of a wall, some bridges.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Instead of a wall, some bridges. Absolutely. All these good things that you can talk about that need to be spent on, and all the money that's available to spend on them without getting close to inflation caused by government spending.
Just to point out a small thing, the military increased budget. Aren't our veterans part of the military? And how come none of that got put aside for all these veterans that are averaging 22 deaths a day and suicides? When we can get them some kind of help or some kind of facility into some kind of home buying program so they can at least
Yeah,
retire.
that's not absolutely. That's not a
That's not
small
military expense.
thing.
That's military
Uh,
expense.
I think it's a military expense, and I don't think
And,
that's a small thing. I think
and
that's the
I think half
first
of it,
thing. I
I
think
think
that's
half of
the
that expense should go to
first
them.
thing the military ought to spend on. The first
Thank
thing
you.
it ought to spend on is its veterans. Taking
So,
care of our own. We got to take
so you're
care of
like
our
me.
own.
You're like me. You
Oh,
don't support
I
your
didn't
troops.
even realize that you were a veteran. We got to
No,
take care of our
I'm not a
own.
veteran. No, I'm not a veteran. I get confused for it all the time because I fight for our veterans just like they fought for our votes. I fought for to make sure these votes count. So, a lot of times I get confused for being a veteran because of my show of love and compassion for these guys who actually gave up most of their liberties for ours. Because they were told who to kill, when to kill, what to kill, when to use the bathroom, who to eat, what to eat, when to eat it. They have the less freedom of any person in this country. And then when they come back, they're homeless. They're getting spit on. They're disrespected. They're not getting the right medical treatment. And if they are, they have to wait. And a lot of it, some veterans are happy with the things that are going on, and we need more of that to happen. But if you're going to ask for military increase, I think half of it should start going to help the families of these veterans and their families, because at the same time, the families are scarred when they see that their loved one come back as someone that they no longer recognize. We got mothers that are looking into their
Oh,
son's
yeah.
eyes and they don't know what happened to their son.
I know.
I have 2 kids. I don't ever want to experience that. And nobody ever should. Never should. And I'm sorry, but this is why I'm running. Because people like that don't have representation. Our homeless don't have representation. I don't have representation. You don't have representation. And you know what we need? We need representation.
You bet. You bet. We need representation for the public purpose. We need representation for the people who don't have representation now. And we need to cut down the representation for the small part of our population that has all the representation now in this hypocrisy democracy. I completely agree with you. Completely.
Thank you. And you're not the only one. There's a lot of people that are out there that are not Democrats and they're not Republicans and they're not Green Party. They're just human beings that just want the right thing. And unfortunately, we have to go through these vehicles of this party system just to get there. And I don't care if you're a Democrat who's reforming the party. I don't care if you're a Republican that can't stand what the Republicans are doing. I don't care if you're a Green that's trying to build the third option. I just worry that if we don't come together and support all of us in this one unified movement, regardless of what vehicle we're taking, we're just gonna fall off the road. We're all gonna crash into each other. We're gonna be on the side, changing flat tire. We're never gonna get there. And my thing is, I don't care what color your car is, as long as they get there. When you get there, you're gonna pave the road for the rest of us to come right behind you. And this is how we win. This is what we need. The parties were designed to divide us. It's not hard to figure out. Pretty soon the parties are going to invest in what's better, Coke or Pepsi, and people are going to go crazy and they're going to start killing each other over Coke or Pepsi. Oh, should we abort or not abort? Should we go to war or not go to war? Should we keep guns or not keep guns? It's always a yes or no battle. It's always a yin and a yang. So there's never real, true, honest solution for the problems that they're creating for us
That's
to
right.
stay divided. So instead of just trying to figure out, how no, let's just go past all of it, go straight to the venom. The venom is we got to put a heart in the machine because it's a machine. These people are soullessly leading us into not salvation, but to the demeaning, they're destroying not only us as people, destroying our planet, and they hold no moral value at all. They really stand on no moral platform. They have no legs when it comes to talking about moral value. When have you ever seen a politician truly went out there and cry? Because they really feel the pain. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Well, there are some of them who could do that extremely well, but you still weren't able to trust them. Like, for example, Bill Clinton.
Exactly.
He used to do a good job of telling people, I feel your pain. But I mean, it was almost a joke, I feel your pain. But he felt our pain so much that
let's offer prayers.
he felt it so much that he repealed our protections against the banks, created a situation. He was most responsible, actually, for the crash, of 2008. It was the financial system that he set up that was exploited by George Bush that actually created that particular problem. I'm talking, of course, of Bush 43, the younger. Bush the younger.
Let's not forget about prisons for profit.
Yes.
That's another one.
Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to show you one more graphic that I'm going to put up here solo. And this is because when you get into the kind of rap that we've been going through now, at some point, some smartass is going to say, well, if we can just create money in this way so easily, why the hell do you have to tax me? And so here are reasons for taxing. First, the reason why we need to tax you is because we need to ensure that you want to have dollars. We don't want to do vital things like settle our legal debts, and do other vital things by using Bitcoin or something like that. Because Bitcoins are a commodity. They're not the legal currency of the government. To keep the government together, keep us together as a nation, we need to have a monopoly currency for the nation, and we need to drive the value of the currency. And that's why we have to tax to some level. Now, also, I just explained that to control inflation, we have to reduce demand in the economy to stabilize the purchasing power of the dollar. So taxing is about controlling inflation. That's in part what it's also about.
The other
Thirdly,
thing is, to add to your argument, with the taxation, you actually, now you have a job where you can actually pay this taxation thanks to what happened here. So, it's almost like, we made it happen. We gave you a good paying job so you can afford the tax. And this tax is going to get recycled back into our infrastructure, or our education, and our health.
Well, it actually doesn't get really recycled because you're always getting the Federal Reserve to create some new money. So it's not actually getting recycled. But what it's going on is that
it slows the bleed.
When you tax back, a part of what's come to people, but through the spending, you're creating space for these things to continue to come to people because you're stabilizing the value of the dollar. And stabilizing value, price stability, is just as important as having full employment. That's also, in other words, that's an equally important goal. But then the third reason to tax is because there are certain things we want to accomplish with our public policies in relation to distribution of wealth and income. In other words, if we want to have a democratic society, we can't have all the financial power in the hands of the rich and the large corporations. So a legitimate reason to tax is to remove some of the money they have so things are more equal, so they cannot control legislation and bribe the politicians. Too much money for the rich and for the corporations is a danger to democracy. So to achieve the public purpose goal of making our democracy safe, we have to tax for that reason. We also have to tax for a fourth reason. That reason is that we want to subsidize by giving tax breaks or penalize by levying taxes against certain of our industries because they're engaging in behavior that we don't want to see. In other words, if corporations, for example, are polluting the air or polluting the water or making it toxic for you or things like that, we have two choices. You know, we can go around arresting people and sticking them in jail, or we can take a gentler approach and we can make them pay the cost of this, the real cost of this, and then see how quickly they'll stop the behavior. So that's a fourth reason. That's essentially sin taxes, like we used to have, maybe still do, sin taxes, okay, on alcohol, because we didn't want people to drink too much. So we put...
It's one of the one tax proposals that I have been floating around, and I call it the Environmental and Health Protection Tax Bill. Now, the way it's proposed is that it's going to be a real minute tax, by the way. I'm not trying to, because everybody, you just get all the businesses to Texas, but any business that profits more than $2 million. So this protects the small business. That's the big clause right here. But they're poisoning our water, our air, our land. So like the Taurus refinery that made like $40 billion in profit alone last year. What if we tax them something less than 1%? We haven't even defined the number. We can negotiate this number. We can get a little board meeting together and figure it out. But then we get McDonald's and all these other companies that are making all this money poisoning us, our air, our water, all that. Like recently we got the sativa company in Compton poisoning the water. Or any company, not just that's poisoning us, but also are treating their employees bad, will get this tax, and then the money would get redistributed to the district. They're damaging us, so and they're profiting it off of it. So they might as well share some of this profit with the district, because if they don't want to give a single payer, if they don't want to do this other stuff, we got to find ways to protect ourselves from their business. So That's the only one I was trying to oppose, and it's only on a profit, so it doesn't go to anybody, and it would be an annex protecting them from increasing the price of anything by a real minimal percent or gouging the hourly of their employees.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing we mean when we say sin taxes. Okay, sometimes we have to enact these sin taxes. And that's a good example.
And on the plus side, businesses that do good business, that are organic and things like that, we give them a tax break. We get them a nice deductible at the end of the year. We reward these businesses so they can keep doing the right thing. So like you said, the tax will pressure people from doing too much of anything that's wrong. So this is one way to, they don't want a profit share from one. I mean, $40 billion in profit from Taurus Refinery. We got SpaceX in my district as well. And these companies are making billions of dollars in profit. But you know what the average median income in my district is? $49.1 thousand. And you know who's in second and last place below that? The Latinos and the Black community. And we're the two highest voting blocks in the district. Yes. But we placed last because we're not getting any of these jobs that are paying so well. Maxine talks about being a small business champion, which is good. I want to be a small business champion too. But the problem with small businesses, most of the small businesses in my district, those people don't live in my district. they don't own homes. In order to have a small business, most of the time you have to put up a house as collateral to get the loan to put up a business. So if most of the people are renting in these districts, there's no wonder why they're shopping on Walmart to save 3 or 4 times as much as going to the convenience store. Because the only thing convenient about the convenience store is every other store where everything was cheaper was closed.
Yep.
So,
Right.
people rather drive to Walmart and pass 5 convenience stores. They're going to, because even with the gas that they're paying, they're still saving money.
Yep.
Yeah. So you want to be a small business champ, you got to open up jobs around that community where they won't mind going to the convenience store and overpaying because now they have the money to do it.
Yeah, right.
Simple.
And you also maybe got to stop the Walmarts, from coming into the areas. And maybe when they do come in, what you got to do is tax them so they get out.
Yeah, I mean, well, the problem with Walmart is that they're the government's best friend. I mean, over here in the orientations, they teach them how to stay under the hourly limit so they can qualify for food stamps and EBT and all that good stuff. And coincidentally, Walmart takes it. So they're recycling all this wealth and they're keeping the costs as low as possible and the
Right,
overhead.
and they're getting subsidized by the government so they can pay these really, really low salaries.
It's a but
That they
it's
give
like
to people.
it's
Of
like a
course, the
profit
job guarantee program would stop that, because if you have a job guarantee program at a living wage, now, Bernie's current program, he is said to be about to propose a $15 an hour living wage. I know that $15 an hour is not a living wage in your district.
not at all.
In Los Angeles, that is not a living wage, and the reason why I know is because my daughter lives in Ken Mejia's district.
Nice.
So she knows what's going on. She's got to live in that particular district.
Yep.
And she knows very well that $15 an hour is not sufficient in a district like hers and in a district similar to yours.
Right.
Either. So that's not a living wage. So I'm waiting for Bernie to propose a living wage and to put it in as a cost-adjusted living wage, so that if there's an average living wage, across the country, let's say of $18 an hour, that in more expensive areas such as yours, living wage might be $24 an hour,
Yes.
or $26 an hour, or something like that. Something somebody could really live on.
And the idea is so logical and basic because, I mean, I work at Costco, and if I want to transfer to the Hawaii store, the cost of living in Hawaii is higher than it is here. Because, imagine if it was affordable, it'd be Skyrise Central, it'd be the Jetsons in Hawaii because everybody would want to live in Hawaii. Well, if I move to Hawaii, my salary gets adjusted to the Hawaiian salary. So
does it?
Well, basically, because of the
Boy.
cost of living, but the problem is, it's hard to get a transfer to Hawaii. That's like a lotto.
Yes, I know. I spent some time in Hawaii myself, and it's really
I
a
never
terrific
gone.
place to live.
See, my wife's gone that thing twice, but I've never been. But yeah, I would love to go
Once
one day.
I did some research in 1968. Now, it was a very long time ago, and I was there for 3 months. On a research grant.
Nice.
My wife and I just loved the place.
Yeah.
The only thing we wondered about there was that it's a few small islands, and you wonder if you were living there on a permanent basis, whether you would have a case of cabin fever before too long.
Like claustrophobia.
Yeah, because it's just really a number of small areas. It's not like driving but through New York State or Pennsylvania, or something like that, or California for that matter. Ain't like that at all. So that's the difference. But boy, it certainly is a paradise. When you're there for 3 months. And you have enough money to be there for 3 months, and to enjoy the place, which we had in 1968. So anyway, one last reason for taxing. Sometimes we want to isolate and to assess directly the costs of certain benefits, such as our highways and Social Security, to the recipients of the benefits. Not that their money actually pays for the benefits. Still the Federal Reserve actually creating the money, okay, but they pay the cost of the benefits so as to make room for further federal spending into the economy. And we tax them in this way because certain particular classes or particular places are getting the benefits. So we want them to have the feel that they are earning the benefits by paying for the benefits. This was the justification that FDR gave for the Social Security the payroll tax when he passed it for the first time. And this is the justification for Social Security payments, that it's actually come down through the years, all the way to today, in spite of the fact that FDR changed his tune in 1944, when he talked about Social Security as an entitlement in the Second Bill of Rights. He talked about the right to a dignified retirement in old age. Okay, so there in 1944 he talked about it as a right, but in 1935 through 1937 he was talking about it as something that people would earn through their contributions to Social Security. And the argument was, if I do it in this way, nobody will ever be able to take it away from them because they've earned it. Well, in recent years, hasn't stopped the Republicans from trying to take it away from people and coming pretty close in various ways at some point, trying to privatize Social Security. So now the situation with older people exists that the size of the Social Security benefits they get is roughly 1/2 of what old people get in the democracies of other nations. In Europe, for example, in many of those nations, the pensions are twice what they are here. And there's no reason for that. In other words, that could be paid for just like we pay for everything else by ordering the Federal Reserve to place the money in the Treasury spending account. And one thing you might want to run on is actually expanding the pension benefits for seniors rather radically over 3 years' time. And that would probably both get you a lot of votes. It's easy to pay for in terms of the scheme, okay, that I outlined. And it would lift the economy because people living as seniors, more consumer demand. Right.
And the moral value of people, because they won't feel so stressed, and how many people are getting their retirement checks and working? That's not a retirement. That's not a retirement at all.
They're working. Okay, and not only are they working, but there are many people who are relying on their children to supplement their Social Security checks, putting a burden on their children who have to contribute to their care and also but pay for their own children. So that's, the middle generation getting hit from both sides and preventing the economy from growing in the working years of those people, who are in the middle. We got to stop that shit.
30-hour work
That's
weeks.
bullshit.
We
That's
need to
bullshit.
we need to push the 30-hour work weeks. The minimum wage should be up to like $28 or $30, and we should go up to a 30-hour work week. And if someone wants to work another 8 hours or 10 hours an extra day, that's fine. You know, they'll make a little bit more extra money than the rest. But yeah, I mean, just that would open up another job for somebody to make up
Yes, it
for.
would. And but take the situation in some of the European countries again. Okay, in Germany, for example, last I looked, the full-time work year in Germany was something like 1,400 hours.
Whoa. Wow.
Here, when we take off a vacation for 2 weeks, okay, and on the holidays, it's something like 1,950 hours. Okay, so Americans are working full-time in a full-time job 550 more hours than their German counterparts. Why did we allow that to happen? Why did we allow all that money to flow into the pockets of the rich?
Because we're the home of the land of the free and home of the brave, and so you have to be brave enough to live free here. It's hard.
It sounds like that, but in fact, it's just the home of the stupid. Okay, what a New York person would say is that, unfortunately, it's the home of the marks who can't see through a particular situation to understand that they're getting gypped, that they're on the short end. I'm going to talk some New York to people. Okay. Yeah, double check those figures. Carrie Mark says 1,400 hours in Germany and 1,900 in America. What the hell? Okay, go to Wikipedia and double check those hours right now. I'm pretty sure that I'm in the ballpark, but the last time that I looked that up, it was roughly that. So figure that out. Okay, look it up and see how far off I am. I'll bet
Joseph,
I'm not too far off.
I hope you're not off by 20, man, because they're gonna hit you hard. if you're out by 20 or more, they're gonna hit you hard on here. You know it. There's no mercy for progressives, even from the progressive. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was told not to run, or who are you to run? And Maxine Waters is trying to impeach Trump. What are you trying to do? I'm like, I'm trying to improve my district, because impeaching Trump, is she gonna impeach Pence? Is she going to impeach Ryan? I mean, is she going to spend the rest of her career impeaching people, or changing the names of post office, for her bills? I mean, I felt that our district needed another option. Sure, we have Omar Navarro and Duarte, and they're representing the Republicans, and Omar Navarro has been endorsed by Joe Aparo, the sheriff that was doing all the illegal jail stuff in Arizona. And Trump, bailed out basically, and then
yes,
he
pardoned him, didn't he?
He pardoned them, right? And then
he pardoned Joe.
And then Omar, instead of going around the neighborhood talking to his constituents, he toured the whole country, raising money from all the different Republican, senators and congressmen and all this, just being buddy with them, because they're tired of hearing Maxine screaming impeach 45, impeach 45. I'm just tired of hearing it because I'm waiting for her to write a darn article of impeachment. I remember in high school.
Oh, you mean she still hasn't written an article of impeachment?
Have you seen one? I still haven't seen one. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I haven't seen one from here, but I think there are from her. But I think articles of impeachment have been written and introduced into the Congress.
They have been, and I don't think she's co-signed any. She hasn't co-sponsored any of them.
Yeah, so, I don't know whether she's co-sponsored it or not, but
I mean, but she right now is being nationally televised as the impeached 45 wave, just like the big blue wave that they keep talking about. But yeah, it's this big old marketing scheme, and they even talked about throwing her into the president, throw her name into the president bag too, because it's anyone but Bernie for the Democrats right now that they're trying to run. I mean, it's sad that they're already trying to run some kind of president already, and we still got like 2.5 years to go. but they're already trying to find a solution because they don't want to run Bernie, and they don't want to have to rig him again because it's going to be even more obvious this time around. It's just so much going on both ends, and they both look ridiculous at this point.
Yes, they do. They both do look ridiculous. But I have no hesitation at all about saying, sure, impeach Trump, but while you're impeaching Trump, just pass a job guarantee and pass the Medicare for all bill and pass, and just tell them all the things. If you can get the votes to impeach Trump, you ought to be able to get the votes to pass these things that people need.
Well, she's not getting neither right now, and that's the reason why I felt like I'll at least fight. I fought to get as far as I have here. I fought in Philadelphia. I didn't go over there and try to take pictures with all these congressional candidates and be all starstruck there. No, I looked at them as they were the reason and the problem on why we're having the issues in our country, and I didn't go over there to be buddies with them. I went to go call them out. I went to go tell them in their face, you guys are fracking. You guys are voting against a $15 minimum wage rate when it ain't even enough. You guys are doing all the wrong things, and you call yourselves the party of the people. Well, there's plenty of people that are really feeling left out in this party. And so many of us are feeling so left out that we left the party all completely together because you guys aren't even representing the left side. You guys are centrist right-wingers now. I can't name any Democrat really.
It's not even a question of the left side. It's a question of not representing the people.
Exactly.
Okay? And the people aren't just on the left side. They're on the right side, and they're on the center, okay? And they're on the left. Okay? People, okay, are on all sides. Okay? But the problem is that they're not being represented by the few people who are in office who are on the corporate side. Mm-hmm. It's the corporate side and the rich side versus the people side.
Yep.
And we got to find people on all sides who are going to represent the people.
Yes, I agree.
And
I agree. I tell people too, Republicans are Americans too, and they're welcome to my table. And you should see, there's plenty of Republicans that at first, they have a little bit of the defense mechanisms with me. But as we started talking, we have cordial debate, and I'm like, you fast. No, I don't talk to them like that. I understand that they're Americans too. So before I start digging a hole that I can't get myself out of, I try to find out why they're so mad. I try to find out, these liberals, they just want to, give away everything away and da-da-da. And I started explaining, we don't want to give everything away. We just want money that we're already spending on all these super high taxes in California. We're at 10%, right? Why can't we find out the transparency and how much of that money is actually being spent on us? And when we find out how much of it is not being spent on us, you're going to see why we're so mad. Don't tax us. We're with you. Don't tax us if you're not going to spend it on us. But since we're already paying taxes, at least spend it on us. And if you're not going to do neither, then we're going to have to start our own public banking. We're going to have to start our own formats because you guys have left us behind. You guys want to represent corporations, which are not breathing entities, and kill off people just in the name of a corporation.
Okay, so that's another thing you're for, specifically public banking.
Oh, of course.
These banks you are for Ellen Brown's proposals, right?
I haven't read it specifically, but I know I'm familiar with the proposal. I just haven't read it.
Google Ellen Brown. She's the public banking expert.
Okay, I'll look at it. I mean, I know who it is already. I'm not fully detailed with this, so I don't want to misinterpret anything either.
Okay, so we've been talking now for about an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that it is time to go, but I'd like to give you a chance to say some last words that you would like people to remember, and I would like you to give your donation details. So if people are moved to donate to you, then they can.
All right. Well, I don't know if anybody's seen Jerry Maguire. It's one of the comparisons I like to use, but I'm kind of like the Jerry Maguire of politics. I'm not your average politician that's going out there in a suit and with my hand out everywhere saying, hey, I'm going to do the best and I'm better than that person. I'm actually a person with ideas, with proposals. I'm a thinking person. I'm a free thinker. I started this as an activist. I've always said it a long time ago that in order to beat the system, we got to be the system. So I'm actually making an attempt to be the system so we can take it apart from the inside out and finally make it work for us. I'm just a person just like you. I represent the working class. I represent the middle class. And I want to give 25% back in my congressional salary and invest it back in my district to prove that I'm not a politician. Because a politician would go ask for more money, not invest it into a district. But since I'll be making more money than I ever have, I'd be so grateful to my district that I want to give it back as a thank you and to show that we're going to keep moving forward. And it won't just be, for the first 2 years that I am in Congress. If I get reelected, this is going to go on, and hopefully I can move it up to 30 or 35%, and keep investing into the district just to show that we can make a difference. And again, I don't want to be referred to as a politician. Even if I do make it into Congress, I want to be referred to as an evolutionary revolutionary, someone of the people for the people. My lowest donation has been at $3. People made fun of me for it, but I took offense to that. Because who donates $3? And then the first thing I told the person that made fun of me is like, well, at least they donated. Because that person didn't donate when they told me this. So that was one thing I said. $3 went a lot further than your 2 cents. And then the other thing is, imagine if someone can only donate $3. They probably needed those $3. They probably didn't have money to donate, and they donated what they could because they believed in the message, and they felt it was more of an investment than a donation. And it's not the one time that I got the $3 donation. There's been a couple of them, and I'm really proud of them. I'm really, really proud of those donations. Why? Because that's the people I represent the most. The poor people, the people that don't have a voice. We were talking about it earlier. The veterans are getting shut out. Homeless, they don't. We have a legal immigration problem going on here. They're talking about an illegal one. We have a legal one. How many people have no homes running around in our country right now? That's an immigration problem with people that are actually citizens. We talk about third world countries. I like to think America has become a fourth world country because normally third world countries, they're suffering because they don't have the resources. The government has totally exploited their people, to a point because they don't have resources, right? Here we have resources. We're just exploiting our people. So we choose to be a third world country. That's why I think we're a fourth world country, because that's worse than a third world country when you choose to be one, right? So I mean, I think of things differently. I think of things logically, and I really try to bring the easy solutions and stuff. Yes, I was a salesperson. Even when I worked for commission for Fry's Electronics, I would tell people I work for commission, and I would tell you, hey, we can start from the top and work our way down. We can start from the bottom and work our way up. But I don't want to oversell you, and I don't want to undersell you. I want you to come home happy and remembering me helping you out. And I would get a lot of return business this way. So I was never the top performer, but I was a consistent performer. And that's what we don't have. We have people that just want all the money and want to be the top performer and only think about themselves, but we don't have consistency. It's not about having more government or less government. It's about who's in government now. Because I can guarantee you, if we had more government and the people actually take care of us, nobody would have a problem with government. Am I right? If we saw that we were prospering, if we had jobs and nobody's stealing, nobody's robbing, nobody's shooting people up because they're happy, their moral values are up, we're in a better situation, then what the hell? That's what I call civilized. I don't call the people that came over here in 3 boats and killed and murdered people for reals and said they were civilized because the natives weren't, No, that's not civilization. That was a crime. And just because there weren't no written laws or whatever to defend those people, it's the same crimes are being committed to immigrants now because they don't have the same laws or written or anything that the natives used to have when they came here and conquered. It's the same narrative. It's a recycled narrative, and it's old. We're tired of it. I mean, what are we going to do when we start becoming immigrants here? We're going to start running, to other countries because war is going to come to our land because we're bullying too many people. And then what happens when nobody wants to accept us because we never wanted to accept them when we cause half the problems. So the problem is people keep running. It's time that we stop, turn around, face them, and stand up and say enough is enough. We could care less about your party. We could care less about your personal motive. We want to do what's right for all of us, not just for one race, not just for one particular class, not just for one particular person, for all of us. And if that means that some Republicans are going to dominate the vote and win some things, that's a democracy. And I can deal with losing. I just can't deal with them not counting our votes. That's the biggest part right there.
Okay, so Miguel, what's your donation button?
Oh, my donation, CROWD, PAC.com. And it's /C/MIGS for Congress. That's MIGZ. That's Z as in zebra. And then FOR Congress, MIGS for Congress. And just remember, hashtag MIGS for Congress, Facebook for Congress, Cloud. I try to keep it under one brand to make it easy to find. And, and the one thing I want to say is that we lead with love and compassion. So I just want to tell everybody that once again, my campaign, first of all, that I love you for believing in my message. It's not that hard to believe. My message is out of love. If we put love first, we can feed people, we can take care of people, and we can prosper.
Okay, you sound very much like one of our guys with the message of love, and that is Jeffrey Ginter, who is one of our favorite guys here, who also talks a lot about love. So
that's a compliment.
I'm going to leave a comment, and the comment is your donation page. And so it will now appear under the comments, and people can see it also.
Okay, my phone may die, so just in case, I want to thank you for having me on board, and it's been a true pleasure being on here. And even when I move on, if I lose or win, you're gonna keep carrying on the torch by inviting people that actually mean something on your show, that care enough to make a difference. So, you are one of our heroes too, Joseph. So thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. And I want to say to you that I've been very, very happy to meet you and to interview you. And I would like to have you on once again. I know your primary is in early June.
Right, June 5th.
So before then, I would like to have you come in for a second session to tell us how the race is going and what you have to do to pull it out.
Are you free tomorrow?
Actually, I'm not free tomorrow, but I think within 2 or 3 weeks would probably be a good time, because your race will probably be starting to peak, at that time. And then a second appearance from you at around there would probably be very, very good. I know you've impressed a lot of people here tonight, and I also know that it would be great if Maxine Waters were retired. That would be an excellent outcome.
She's a champion. She's a champion. This is her throne. I would do anything just to debate her. I would love to debate her. I'm a product of her, of her proposals or her voting. I'm a lifetime member of this district, and for the last about 20 years, she's represented me. Now it's forced me to run. So if she can't beat me, if she can't hear me out, someone who actually lives in the district who knows the problems that's going on, if she would at least accept one of my proposals, it would be a win for my district, right? So I want her to give her I want to earn the title. I'm not trying to sneak by her or anything. I want to be able to face her and tell her, hey, I want your seat because I feel I have better plans. I got bigger proposals than you have ever had. I'm sorry, you've done some good things, But it's time for new. It's a whole new,
Time for a change.
a whole new future. A lot of things have happened since you've been in office, and and your game plan
Right. So I want to call your attention to the comment on the screen. But Johnny Axum says, seems like a good candidate for the 116th coalition. 116th congressional coalition is something Johnny has organized. He is running in the Minnesota 1st as a Democrat, but he is a real progressive also. And so he has organized a coalition which numbers some 45 people now, maybe 10 to 12 staff, and all the rest are progressive congressional candidates, okay, from around the country. I think we've lost Miguel for the moment. He may be able to come in again, but in any case, he can see the tape of that. And yes, Johnny, I agree. He's a very good candidate for the coalition, and he should be invited as soon as the broadcast ends so that he can join but very quickly. So he may come back to say goodnight, but if he doesn't, I want to take this opportunity to say Real Progressives has a Patreon page, and we'd appreciate a donation from you on the Patreon page when you can afford it. And secondly, I have a Patreon page too, and I would appreciate a donation when and if you are so moved, and if you can afford one. The size doesn't matter at all. Okay, I appreciate all donations. Okay, and I'm very grateful to people who are so moved. So I'm going to give another minute or 30 seconds to Miguel to see if he can sign in again. But his phone died. Okay, so Wilkie, please tell him that he's received an invite to the 116th Congressional Coalition, and that if he joins, he will be joining all kinds of cool Congress people there, including Rodolfo Cortez and a number of other very cool people who I think that he knows, and a lot of former Berniecrats and present Berniecrats. And they'll all be happy to see you there and exchange information with you. Okay, so Wilkie, please tell him. Okay, so now I'm going to say good night. Thank you very much for attending. I really enjoyed myself tonight. Boy, Miguel is a good candidate, isn't he? He's got the spirit, and he's got the fire, and he has the ideas also. And he's the kind of congressperson that we need. So I'm going to end our broadcast. So good night, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Joy, we'll see you tomorrow night with a very good candidate. I will be back on Saturday night with Jenny Marshall. So good night and good luck.